box, everyone. Let us know where you're calling from. And actually, this is just a great time to get us kicked off here. So I just want to say thank you, everyone, for joining this chat with Hopin. We've got two great speakers here that are going to drop a lot of knowledge in the next hour. You all are going to see that time is going to fly by super quickly. So really want to help everyone maximize their time here so that you all can have a chance to maybe ask some questions that you didn't get to submit previous to this chat. And so to do that, we will cover some quick housekeeping rules. If we can go to the next slide, so everyone can feel comfortable and confident in this next hour. Participation is key, so we would love to have you participate by dropping things in the chat box, any reflections, any questions, any of your own tips and tricks that you find useful that maybe you want to share with our live audience today. You can turn your cameras on if you feel called to do so. If anyone wants to hop off mute, you can let me know by writing in the chat box, and we will figure out how to give you access to voice your question or your reflection there. If anyone does hop off mute, this is being recorded, so you will be featured in our live recording. And with that said, this is a nice time for me to remind everyone. I know that we live in a world where everyone multitasks all the time, but I invite you to be present with us in this next hour. So close all of your tabs, stop what you're doing, and really focus on this conversation so that you can ask your questions in the chat box when they come to mind, or just kind of share the dialogue with us and you're not just listening to us speak at you. We would love for you to participate. Again, use the chat box. If you have any sensitive information and you want to be kept anonymous, you can find me in the chat box. Marie, you can write to me privately, and I will flag your question or your reflection to our panelists today. And the last thing I'll say is we would love for you to follow us on socials and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can keep up with all the great chats we've got in store for you. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. I'm really excited to remind you all to follow Hopin on Power to Fly. When you follow Hopin, that will let them know that you're interested in working with them. So you will get alerts when they've got new roles available and any kind of content that we post on Power to Fly. So I encourage you all to follow them on Power to Fly. I'll be dropping a link in the chat box as well so you can have direct access to that. And of course, our guest speakers are going to share more about what jobs are available and how, their advice on how to apply and all of that. So follow Hopin on Power to Fly. I'm going to drop a link in the chat box in just a few moments here. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide, and I would love to introduce our guest speakers to you today. So we have two guest speakers that are going to be dropping a lot of knowledge today. We're going to start with Jaclyn here, who is the Regional Sales Manager at Hopin. She is an experienced sales leader with an impressive track record of driving sales growth and developing high-performance sales teams. With 7 years of experience in SaaS and 5 in leadership, what makes her so passionate about this role is the ability to help her reps find what makes them uniquely talented and use that to take their career to the next level. Jaclyn, is there anything else you'd like to add to this introduction here?
No, not so much. I think you nailed it. I've been with Hopin for about 6 months now, and we are growing our team, and we are really excited to be here today. So thank you so much, Mariella.
Awesome. All right, let's move on to the next slide here. All right, so we have Louise here, who is the test engineering manager at Hopin. She's passionate about producing accessible, quality, and industry-leading software. She brings more than 15 years of experience across corporate, startup, and remote working, alongside being a mom of 2 kids, 4 cats, and a baffling obsession with running ultra marathons, which I'm excited to hear more about. Louise, would you like to add more to your introduction today?
No, just other than that, I'm just really excited to be here, and thanks for joining us, everyone.
Awesome. So I just want to remind everyone, Paloma has already put the link in the chat box to go to Hopin's page on Power to Fly, and you can see what roles are available. We're going to cover that as well throughout this hour. But just go ahead if you want to click on that link and just kind of peruse as we are speaking today and diving into the questions that you'll have submitted before this chat. So we can stop sharing our screen and have our faces just take over the whole screen here, have some nice face time as we roll through the questions that you all have submitted previous to the chat. So if you hear your question come up and you're here live with us, we would love to know that you're here. And if you don't hear a question that you submitted come up, go ahead and write that in the chat box. And if we have time, we'll get to that. Okay, so let's start with this first question here. Can you suggest any resources for educating ourselves or others about the importance of work-life balance? I know there must be a better or more clear vocabulary, metrics, or examples I could be using. And Jaclyn, I'd love for you to tackle this one.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Harvard Business Review articles that they have on there. There's one in particular called Manage Your Work, Manage Your Life that I would highly recommend everybody Google and take a look at. But I also love podcasts. One of my favorite podcasts is the Corporate Confidential, and they really break down those practical steps for everybody to take to manage their life, but also still be a stellar employee. Also, I use my employee resources, and I would really recommend everybody reach out to your employee resources and use those because there's a lot of great stuff in there. We just don't think about looking at those as well.
Absolutely. And I know that tons of new ERGs are being suggested just with all of the things that are going on in the world. So as we roll through the chat, I would love for you all to speak about maybe some of the favorite things you all have done in your resource groups so that maybe folks can find it more enticing to apply and feel, a sense of belonging as well.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's move on to this next question. This next question is for both of you. So I have developed a tendency to overwork myself, partially from being overwhelmed, many different clients, types of tasks, expectations, and low responsiveness, and partially due to my own high personal standards. Besides therapy, I'm already there. How can I help enforce my work time boundaries in a way that is acceptable to the client? Or from an organizational perspective, are there ways to start this conversation without rocking the boat? And Louise, how about we start with you?
Sorry, I am rereading the question. Sorry, I have a brain freeze there. Apologies. I think therapy is a great place to start. I highly recommend it. Just going to say that off the bat. If you are ever feeling stressed or overworked, great place to offload is as a therapist. Many companies, corporations, have time to talk and other such things. So definitely, well done for already doing that. I think taking care of your mental health is so important, especially the last 18 months have told us we really need to take care of our physical and mental health. So big props for taking that step, because I know it can be really hard for people. So that's already a great step. I think in terms of when it comes to clients, being really direct is really important. Give them clear expectations of don't respond to emails at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Don't feel the need to necessarily apologize if they've emailed at 2 a.m. and you've not read it till 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Don't feel pressure to say, oh, I'm really sorry, I was asleep. It's 2 a.m. A lot of people are asleep. It's okay. It's okay. Just try setting those boundaries. Like, oh yeah, I got that. As soon as I got to my desk this morning, you were my first email. Of course I've got to you as soon as I started work. You don't have to be, always be, rocking the boat, as it were. You don't have to say, oh no, I'm not going to respond to that. It's too late. It's not early. Just don't respond, or set out from the offset. Oh, if you can send this file to me as soon as you're able, I'll then take a look first thing Monday morning. Set that expectation really clearly. A good friend of mine actually, at perfect timing, last week had a client email her and say, oh, can you ring me to finish this deal? And she very politely replied back with, actually, would you mind if we finish this by email? I'm really not great on the phone. I find it very overwhelming sometimes. She's a designer. They do a lot of communication by text. So how about we just finish it off in email? I just feel a bit more comfortable and can respond when I've got time. And her client was perfectly happy with it. She was, nervous about taking that step and saying, I'm sorry, I don't really want to talk about it on the phone. Busy working mum, too many distractions. And yeah, you'll be surprised how many people are actually quite receptive to those boundaries as well, especially if you go, don't go in all guns blazing. Start off with a gentle approach, and you can be really surprised how well people can take it.
Yeah. I love that when you set your own boundaries as well, so that you can make sure you're bringing your best self to the table, right? And not kind of going beyond your limits just to please, we have to do that enough when we're not working. So let's try to, make sure that we're able to bring our best selves to the table so that we can work hard and we don't have to, ask for forgiveness later. So I love just setting the stage like that. Thank you for that. And Jaclyn, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I could absolutely relate to the question. You know, when we have very needy clients, we feel like we need to respond right away. We have to do what's right for our business and for our client and the expectations of a partnership. So if we're responding right away to their emails every single time, that's what they're just going to expect every single time they email you. So if you start to notice those things, let them know. I have a very hectic week. I will respond back to you within 24 hours. I can promise you that. And then you're just laying that foundation, and they know that you're going to respond back in that 24-hour time frame. They're not going to keep pestering you, because that's what gets overwhelming. That's what starts to get to your nerves and get in your head. You have to, you know, your responsibilities, you know, your work ethic. Don't be so hard on yourself.
And I know it's easier said than done, right? Because I love that in the previous question, or actually it was this question, that this person highlighted their kind of perfectionist mind. And so when we want to be perfect, you know, which, by the way, everyone, there's no such thing as perfect. So just be yourself and try to honor what you're bringing to the table. But, you know, it's kind of hard to kind of shut that part of your mind off so that you can recognize that you're human first, and that in order to be socially responsible, we have to set these boundaries, and make sure that we're first well so we could do our jobs correctly, and then continuing to nurture those relationships. So I love that you all are speaking to that. Let's move on to this next question here. How do you manage meeting fatigue? Or you can talk about digital fatigue or screen fatigue in general, but I'd love to hear both of your responses on that.
Meeting fatigue is a real thing, and we've all felt it for over a year now. But there's a couple things that I really try to stay true to. When I'm in meetings, I try to avoid multitasking, because that really just doesn't make you present and actually impacts your day for the worse, when you might have missed a few important things or takeaways within that meeting, and you missed them because you were responding to a quick email or a Slack message. Those Slack messages can wait 15 minutes, and you can have a better response when you actually have time to focus on it. Also, I like to build in breaks within my calendar. I really stay true to my calendar when I have focus times on my calendar, or when I have a 5-minute break just to get up, walk, go get some water, get some fresh air, then come back to refocus, I think is really important. But I also try to reduce on screen. Staring at yourself all day, every day, meeting after meeting is it's mentally draining at some points, right? So there's certain meetings that I have with my team where I tell everybody to turn off your camera. There's a day in the week, every Wednesday, I have my cameras off for my meetings, and my colleagues know, my peers know, my team knows, and they're welcome to do it as well. I think it's really important for those three things to be top of mind.
I love that strategy. Actually, I started to play around with that with some of my therapy sessions. And actually, they asked me, they were like, well, this is what I usually do, because it's kind of, you know, overwhelming to see yourself speaking every day, all the time. So I love this. And I think that it has definitely helped me. So I love, Jaclyn, that you're highlighting this as well. So maybe some more folks can experiment with that. Louise, what do you have to say about this? How do you manage meeting fatigue?
Well, I did recently, actually, if you're using Google Meet for any of your meetings, you can now, in a recent-ish update, hide your own screen completely. First of all, it'll minimize it, and then you can completely hide it, so you don't have to look at yourself, which I do whenever I've got a meeting on Google Meet. I haven't checked, you know, other options, but I know personally that you can do that. Even when I'm chatting with friends, you know, remotely at the moment on Google Meet, it's great just to be able to close my own face. Because you do end up just staring at it. And I was actually reading an article not long ago about why humans do it. I can't remember why. It was fascinating. I'm sure I'll try and find it and you know, pop it up on LinkedIn at some point. But yeah, it's natural. Everyone does it. I'm doing it right now, and I'm really trying not to. But you end up staring at your own face, and you're like, oh no, is that really what I look like today? And especially working from home. Well, let's face it, we've all been working in our sweatpants for the last 18 months. Or is that just me? I'm sure that's not just me. And so when you log on first thing in the morning and your hair's out here, you know, and most people don't usually look at their best first thing in the morning. You know, the last thing you want to see is your own face. So yeah, absolutely what Jaclyn was saying, like try and go no camera, you know, occasionally, and you know, have that break from staring at yourself, because yeah, it just becomes a lot. What I've also tried doing, at least on meetings there, I'm in charge of scheduling. I'm trying to end mine a few minutes early as well. So instead of everything being, a full half hour, a full hour or whatever, I'm trying to limit it to a 25-minute. I might block it out for the full half an hour just so that nobody else sneaks anything in. But I will try and make a point of deliberately ending it, 25 minutes, 55 minutes, to give people that gap to, go and take a bathroom break, go and, make up coffee, or just move away from your laptop for 5 minutes and just at least be able to breathe between meetings. Because, some of us do end up going from meeting to meeting, client to client, or, or project to project. And it can be hard to find those little gaps and those moments to just, read the document for the next meeting, remind yourself who you're actually meeting and what the context of the next one is. So building in those natural little breaks just give you a chance to breathe from one, take a moment, even just those 5 minutes, breathe, and then get yourself prepared for the next one. Because we've all done it. We've all gone to another meeting and you suddenly realize you've got no idea why you're there, what's expected of you, that sudden panic of, was I supposed to read something for this meeting? And then you end up doing what Jaclyn said, and you're multitasking. You're sitting there in the meeting going, yeah, I'm listening, as you're on the other screen, pre-reading the emails you probably should have read earlier, but you've been in meetings. So, and I know a lot of people are trying to do that, and it'd be great if more of us could just give ourselves just those few minutes. Or if it's a really long meeting, I work in engineering, and sprint planning sometimes takes, more than half an hour. Sometimes this could be several hours worth of planning. Just put breaks in, everyone turn your cameras off, and I'll, and plan in 10 minutes. People need it, and people are afraid to ask for it. You're in an hour-long meeting and you really need the bathroom. Nobody wants to be that person on call going, sorry, can I just, I need 5. We need to give people that space to still be human beings, fundamentally. So yeah, that's the things I've been doing recently, and also trying to block out my calendar. So I've got time where I really need to focus because I've got stuff that isn't meetings to do. I'm going to block that out in my calendar. If it's urgent, I might move it, but I'm going to block out the rest of those times so I've got time to do some actual work occasionally. Mostly works.
I love it. I love the transparency as well, that we're all figuring this out, right? Given the circumstances, we're trying to, again, bring our best selves to the table, use the tools that we have at our fingertips, but just not be overwhelmed by them. I love that both of you are highlighting, using that calendar, the power of the calendar to say, like, this is my time to go breathe, take a walk, move my body around. I love that you're speaking about bringing the human back, to the workplace, because otherwise we are pushing ourselves, and then we'll end up, hurting ourselves or hurting someone else. I often love to speak about the importance of developing our emotional intelligence in the workplace and at home. And what you both are saying is just it's a key to helping develop that emotional intelligence. And it sounds so simple, right? Take some time to breathe. It's like, well, yeah, we breathe all the time, but to intentionally breathe so that you can have literally more oxygen in your body, so you can be smarter, quicker, just more friendly. If you need to be, just put that fresh face on, using your breath, power of the breath, and using, a couple minutes before you jump into a meeting. I know it sounds so simple again, but it's really effective. And I can just see it in your faces as well, that it clearly works, and you're clearly taking time to remind people to do that. So thank you both. All right, so let's move to this next question here. Can you share a few examples of reasonable boundaries and how to set them with coworkers? This isn't my strongest skill, personally or professionally, largely because I'm unsure if I'm expecting too much or not enough.
It's a good question. I think we instill a fear of ourselves that setting boundaries or expectations is wrong. We create that all on our own. And sometimes we give ourselves expectations that we need to perform at a X level, right? Thinking about the person that was in the role that you're in today, who got promoted, who responded to every email right away. I need to do the same thing. No, not necessarily. So to be able to set boundaries for yourself and then talk to your peers, your coworkers, your cross-functional partners, the people that you interact with, and let them know what those boundaries are and just discuss it so you guys are on the same page, that will go so far. I remember with my team, I told them, these are my working hours. Of course, I'm here for you if anything pops up at night or whatever the case may be. If it does, you can ping me or reach out to me, and I know it's important and that I need to address it. And if I have time, I'm going to respond to you to whatever that situation is, or I'm going to tell you that I can't get to it right now, and I'll get it to you first thing in the morning. When I told them about my boundaries, the whole room like took a deep breath, and they're like, "Thank you so much for saying that." I feel the same exact way. I was like, "Tell me more. What are your boundaries? Let's get on the same page so we can know what to expect from one another, given that we're working in a remote environment." It's really important. It goes a long way, and there's nothing to be fearful about it.
Absolutely. I think for those of us in like leadership positions, especially, it's so to tell our team, even just by setting our own boundaries, it gives our team just that, I can't think of the right word now, that confidence in themselves to go, oh, you're doing it, so I can set my boundaries as well. Like it's, you feel you've got that drive behind you to go, oh, and blocking it out in Google is really helpful. Right? Set your working hours if you haven't, or whatever calendar app your business is using. Other calendars are available. Block it out, use that working hours, and then people can see if they're putting things in that it's outside of working hours. Jaclyn and I both work for Hopin, and we are a fully remote, worldwide company. And so time zones and working hours get lost, not deliberately, but just because I forget where people are sometimes. I'm trying to schedule a meeting and realize that the person I'm talking to is in New Zealand. And so we might compromise maybe on what time we decide to meet. But having those hours blocked out in your calendar in the first place is really useful, because it just instinctively sets that boundary. No one has to ask. It's clear and it's there. And if you do need to meet out hours, then that's a choice, hopefully, that you've made to go, actually, you know what, I'm really busy all day, but this, this one I don't mind doing, But yeah, it sets that expectation with your team that they're allowed to do it too, and really, stop waffling.
Absolutely. And that mirroring, right? To show like, if I'm doing this, you are welcome to do this as well, if it fits in the way that you work and set up your work day. So the importance of doing that on the team, and especially as managers, and taking that initiative to show, it is essentially what Eva here is writing here in the chat box. I love that, just asking about what their boundaries are. So asking about, having that active listening component, also practicing empathy, knowing that you don't like to be doing that all the time, so why would you expect someone else to? So having that thoughtful response there, and Angelina's writing that it trickles down. So absolutely. So having, showing that, demonstrating that first, and opening a space for others to contribute as well. Jaclyn, did you want to add anything there? I see you're nodding your head.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. If you respect their boundaries and know what they are, they're more likely to respect yours, right? Blocking lunch on my calendar, I would get pings from different people being like, "Hey, I see you have a lunch coming up. Do you mind if I take 10 minutes of your time?" And I'm like, "I'll let you know if I finish lunch 10 minutes early." And absolutely, or let's find another time later in the week. We coordinate calendars. So it's really important to stick to that. I mean, you need that break. You'll go crazy.
I agree with you. And how do you practice that extra no, right? So you've gone as far as to block your calendar, and someone still wants to see if they can, intrude in that time that you've blocked for lunch, for example, and you still say, "I'll let you know," and see how it goes there, because I find that that might be kind of pushing it for some folks, and they might give in and say, "Okay, I'll meet with you," and then they're basically crossing their boundaries.
Fair. If you give in, they're going to consistently assume you're going to give in every single time. You have to do what's best for you. And when you say no, it's okay. They're going to say, everybody has to say no at some point of their day to make sure that they're executing the priorities that they have to get done that day. If you don't, you're just building out that to-do list and overwhelming yourself. And then come 5 o'clock, you still have 6 things that you need to get done that you weren't able to because you were putting out fire drills that weren't necessarily a priority and could have waited 48 hours.
Real talk, right? So the importance of standing your ground, so that, essentially doesn't continue to, I have the image of like something with holes in it. You're basically losing content, you're losing energy by not focusing that energy, and saying like no is no, and respect that. So I appreciate that. Of course, you do it in a professional way, but again, going back to that mirroring aspect, the more times you say that, maybe that will have a trickle effect and show people that they can also, stand their ground and take their lunch and digest it fully and then come back to work a better person.
Absolutely. I mean, if it's a priority and you have time to do it, of course, right? But asking them, can it wait a couple days? Can it wait later in the week? I'm sure they'll say yes.
Awesome. All right. So I love the chatter happening in the chat box. Thank you so much. Eva writes, yes, block of lunch. We all need to eat and use the restroom. It's one of the first things I like to do when creating a calendar. Angelina writes, especially as a woman, we are expected to give in. So yes, I think that there's digital confetti being thrown here on this response. So, let's stand our ground, everyone, and show that it can work. We don't need to just keep going all the way until, the end of the workday. Okay, so let's move on to this next question here. I'm trying to establish standards for a company response time to customers at my company, but I'm getting blowback because each person seems to have different expectations. Do you have any advice on how to effectively adopt new standards, or is it smarter to involve HR on this matter?
Louise, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it depends, what they mean by company response times. Is this within internal messages or to clients? As I suspect they may be two different things. I'll let Jaclyn talk about clients because I work in engineering, and don't talk to real people. We deal more with SLAs and those kind of timings of engineering problems. And we have a lot of timing based things around that, and whenever we try and look at those kind of response times, it's always a big deal because of course everybody has an opinion, and to one extent you want to hear those opinions. You want to know if 95 people are saying it should be one thing, but there's a couple of people over here saying something different. It can be really valuable to understand why those people think something completely different. Is it from particular experience, or do they have some company insight that actually maybe you weren't aware of? So it can be useful to go out and actually gather all of those opinions and try and make an assessment. When it comes to HR, I'm not sure, just because I'm not sure what kind of company response times you're looking at and if that would necessarily be appropriate for what you're trying to implement. But by all means, canvass those opinions. Maybe some kind of type form, anonymous form response kind of option. Gather in that data and see what seems to be the common themes of what your current response times are. What are your typical, not the 30 seconds 2 a.m. kind of responses, and not your 3 days later, but what's that mean section of response times, and actually is that something that's achievable overall? And fundamentally, you are never going to please everybody. Think about when you go out to lunch with your friends. Trying to pick somewhere for lunch with a group of 6 people is completely impossible. We all know that. Eventually, it takes that one person to decide which restaurant you're going to go to because everyone's got a different opinion about where to go for dinner. And you think that's just going for dinner with 60 mates. Imagine trying to put in a response time for 400 employees. It's exponentially going to be harder. So don't feel like you've got to please everybody. Do what you think is best, given the information that you know, and what is going to be best for the company and for the employees as human beings. Don't set a 20-minute response time. I don't know, that may be long or short. I'm not sure on the specific context, but just make the best decision you can. Maybe check with a couple of other managers or directors, get a sounding board for your, for what you'd like to implement, and then go from there. But new policies can always be changed if they're not right. Nothing has to be perfect on the first attempt. People are so focused on going from 0 to 100, with a new process or, a new workflow, and everyone's so fixated in the end result. You forget that actually, a marathon, or a sprint, 100 meter dash, we've all seen in the Olympics recently. People have trained for a long time to get there, and it's not start to finish. There are many steps in between, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with taking it literally step by step and refining your response times, refining your processes, and adapting as you go along. You don't have to get to the perfect result on your first time. It's unrealistic, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on you as a person as well. So don't do that. Be nice to yourself. But yeah, it can be difficult.
I'd also say, if people, all these different people have different response times internally, and you're like, well, when's when do I have to respond right away? Can I wait 24 hours? And you just don't know. Give that feedback to your manager. Ask your manager, ask your leader, give that feedback in the Glint survey, letting the or the employee engagement survey, whatever tool that your company uses, and let them know that it's a little confusing and overwhelming. But as Louise said, prioritize what you need to prioritize. Your roles and responsibilities within your role, and meet those expectations.
I love the flexibility component that you all are referencing in these responses, just to first be kind to yourself, right? So that self-awareness piece, that's key. Knowing your triggers, knowing what's going to, make you exceed your boundaries. And I'm guilty of this as well, that perfectionist part of my mind. It's like, okay, it means I need to do X, Y, and Z, going from, as Louise mentioned, that 0 to 100, really, kind of over giving, essentially, is what it is. When we cross our boundaries, we're over giving, and then we have less to give to ourselves or to our team. So I love this, flexibility component, this self-awareness component that you all are highlighting. So thank you for that. Okay, so let's move on to this next question here. This question is for both of you again. How can I best maintain consistent communication with coworkers, supervisors, etc., when there's a power imbalance?
I think regardless of the power imbalance, whether you're a direct report or a leader or for your peers, it's important to understand what people's preferred communication is. Ask them, let them know what yours is. If it's not consistent today with how you meet with your leader, ask them to have a one-on-one, a weekly one-on-one, or bi-weekly one-on-one. Provide an agenda for those one-on-ones. Send that agenda prior to your meetings, so you guys are both come prepared for your discussion, and walk away from that meeting with everything that you needed to get accomplished. Because really, at the end of the day, regardless of that power imbalance, you both are working for this company. You're on the same team overall, and your mission is to better impact the business overall.
Agreed. I'm very much for setting agendas beforehand, especially for those that do struggle to communicate verbally, especially in one-on-one meetings. It can be quite hard when someone is far more senior than you, and you do really feel that power imbalance. You're the intern and they're a director. It can be really it can be really terrifying, really, especially if you're new, or you are just a naturally more quiet and reserved person. It can be really hard to bring up, especially if it's a sensitive topic. So write it down, send it out in advance. That intent is already out there. They're already aware of the topics you want to bring up, and then part of that is on them to give you space to actually cover those topics as well. And if you're working for, hopefully, a nice supervisor, manager, then they will give you the space to talk about those topics, if you send them out in advance. And let's face it, we all know sometimes it's easier to sit anonymously behind your screen and write it than it is to bring up that topic of conversation, especially if it is something very sensitive, or maybe in a negative area, you're having problems at work, or you want a pay rise. Don't forget, you can ask for those too. And sometimes by putting it out there first, it can just break the ice, and help bring that conversation naturally in, because hopefully they'll bring it up.
I don't know about everybody here, but one of my biggest pet peeves is when I get invites on my calendar and there's no agenda. And I'm like, what are we talking about? We're back to back in meetings. I don't know if I don't know what to come prepared with. I had a leader once that would just randomly put 30-minute calendar invites, and I would have no idea. I want to be able to manage your expectations and come prepared. So I said to her, I was like, you're killing me here. You're giving me anxiety because I have no idea what to expect. They randomly pop up. They're not consistent. And I need that consistency in order to communicate with you effectively, make sure I'm meeting your expectations, and come prepared and accomplish whatever the topic that needs to get done. She was like, okay, thank you for telling me. And it was just a few bullets that she would put in there when the time would come. And we ended up doing a bi-weekly one-on-one, because those random they're stressful, especially when it's your leader. Like, oh my gosh, what are we talking about? Am I in trouble? You always go to the negative.
Oh, absolutely. So when people drop you a Slack message and like, hi, have you got 5 minutes? Why? What have I done? I know internally here at Hopin, on our guideline of Slack etiquette, one of the things that's listed on there is please don't do that.
Yeah.
By all means, start the sentence with if you have 5 minutes, would you be able to help me with, question? Because sometimes they're not even the right person. They just might be the closest person in that area who can then direct you on to the right answer or the right person. Put it all out there in that first statement of, when you have a moment, this isn't urgent, but could you, what's 1 + 1? And then that person will get back to you when they can. You've already set that expectation. They're not sitting there, hi, how are you? Yeah, right, thanks. We've got 5 minutes. Maybe, sure, okay. And it just saves everyone so much time. You get straight to the context. There's no panic, there's no fear. And if you aren't the right person, then you help them get to their solution even quicker. Going, oh, I'm not, actually, you need to talk to this person here. It just moves it on. That person then isn't waiting for ages because they've given you the context straight away. And that's something that we try and do a lot here. You see newbies start those messages and very quickly get directed to the Notion page of maybe a better way of communicating. And it's really helpful to do that, because everyone goes to that, oh God, am I getting fired? That's everyone's first thought. Don't know why, it's just everyone's first thought of, I'm in trouble, I'm fired, what did I forget?
Absolutely. I love the responses from both of you. I just want to highlight some things that are happening in the chat box here. Holly writes, curious as a follow-up question to this, how would you respond to someone who texts, emails, chats, another follow-up if I received their first outreach when there was no response from me creating boundaries to the initial request? So Holly, if I'm understanding correctly, you did not respond from the initial request, but they have repinged you with text, emails, or chats asking for another follow-up. I think I'm reading that correctly. Let me know in the chat box if I'm not. What do you all have to say about this reflection here?
Yeah, if they're pinging you twice, clearly it's a priority to them. So I would just respond and say, hey, I can't get to this right now. Can I reach back out to you by the end of the day or tomorrow, whatever your calendar is? And if not, let me know what the topic is. So maybe I can point you in a better direction. You're helping them solve the issue, but you're also prioritizing what you need to get done as well. Because maybe it needs at the top of your list suddenly.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay. Thank you, Holly, for dropping that in the chat box. Okay, let's move on to this next question here. Have you found any rewarding uses for breaks to help reset during your workday at home?
Yeah, 100%. Taking breaks, it allows you to de-stress, recharge, and accomplish the rest of your workday. Those regular breaks overall, I personally believe really help my job satisfaction with Hopin. So yeah, breaks, take your breaks. You need them. We're human. We can't sit at our desk being remote all day, every day in our office or in, a designated spot. We got to get up and move.
Agreed. I like to use some of if say a meeting finishes unexpectedly early. It happens sometimes. And you find yourself with 10 minutes and you look at your to-do list and everything on there is 20 minutes plus. You're like, what do I do? I will literally go and do something completely mindless around the house. I've got 2 kids, as I mentioned in my bio earlier. So there's usually something that needs tidying, cleaning, putting away. And I'll just, go and put a load of laundry in the machine or go and feed a cat or just stare out of my window, make a cup of coffee, something that doesn't involve any real, mental capacity to have to think about. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, I've had a busy day of meetings, but I did put the washing on. And I know it sounds so trivial. I ran the Hoover around or, I took the dog for a walk. I don't have a dog, but, other people take dogs for walks. And if you do find yourself with a few spare minutes, just sometimes completely disengaging from technology, it's just, you feel so much better for it. And like Jaclyn said, you just feel refreshed. You feel ready to tackle your next meeting or next thing you've got to do because you've just had that break. And it sounds really trivial. It sounds really silly, but you'll be amazed. Just try it for a week. If you don't believe us, just try it for a week. Take regular couple of minute breaks here and there. Put your laptop, don't take your phone, and just completely detach yourself from technology for a few minutes. Take a few breaths, do the washing, and you'll be surprised how much just calmer you feel throughout that day. Just taking a moment to let your heart rate, go back down again. It's definitely worth doing.
Great advice. Jaclyn, do you want to add anything there?
No, I think she nailed it.
Awesome. I'm a fan of adding dance breaks, even if no one knows I'm doing it, just to get the blood moving and kind of shake everything off and just kind of have the canvas be blank again so that I can come back with a fresh mind. I know that also might sound weird, but I definitely recommend it. It does. It's great for me. At least it's working for me.
You put
Okay, so let's move on.
do
Oh,
you put
sorry. Say that again.
I was just going to say, do you put dance breaks on your calendar?
You know what? I do actually. And when I'm
I love
facilitating different workshops online, I invite people like, okay, we're going to take a break, do what you want to do. But I recommend listening to this. I'll add a link for them to listen to a specific kind of music. And then, as you're going to refill your water, maybe you walk over and dance to refill your water instead of just kind of walking mindlessly. So, I definitely like all things creative. And I just find that just shakes up the day a little bit, especially when we have to be working online a lot. So definitely suggest that.
love it.
You say that we do that we have a company-wide meeting, and the first couple of minutes while everyone's logging in and joining, we have a classic great tune that's put on, and when you see the comments, it's just everyone going, oh, classic tune, everyone's dancing in their chairs, and just doing something silly and fun for a few minutes. I need to do more of my meetings like that.
Dance breaks are great in whatever context.
I'm adding it.
Okay. You're in. Okay, great. Maybe, you know what? Maybe we can have a little dance break on our next meeting. We can kind of put that as a goal for ourselves.
Done.
Great. So let's see. I want to know if anyone else here on the call does anything kind of cool and quirky like that. Do you have anything that you find that is useful? We would love to hear your own tips and tricks and share it with our live audience here in the chat box. Okay, Angelina writes, get an old school alarm in another room. It forces you to get up and turn it off. Nice. That's a good option as well. All right, let's move on to this next question here. So how can we set and maintain boundaries as new leaders and colleagues join the company? And I would just love for you to also highlight maybe how some of the onboarding experiences have been as we are working virtually these days. I know that some people are afraid of that, or they want to make sure that they're bringing their best selves to being, a good communicator, all the things that we've talked about already in this chat. So maybe if you can highlight some, what people can expect if they are hired at Hopin and some of the onboarding in order to set and maintain boundaries.
As a leader, I always have, a manager intro meeting with any of my new hires. I talk about who I am personally, who I am professionally, my career path and whatnot. But then I do what I call a whiteboarding session. I did it with my team when I first came to Hopin, and I do it with the new hires, where I first ask them, what can I expect? What do you expect from me as your leader? And we talk about it. We whiteboard it. We call things out. I'll add things to the list. And then the second question I ask is, what can I expect from you as a rep, right? And they call things out. I call things out. We come up with this foundation of expectations with one another. And I do that with every new hire because everybody is different. Everybody has different communication styles, learning styles, what they expect in a leader. And I need to know that. But they also need to know what they could expect from me, what my, boundaries or expectations are and who I am as a leader. Everybody's different. So I think it's really important to have that conversation and brainstorming session right off the bat for anybody that comes and joins my team in particularly. At Hopin, we have an amazing sales enablement team. We're scaling that team very quickly. And we have I believe it's about 2 weeks of onboarding now, where the first week is all about the company. It's a lot of in-person sessions. I mean, we use our own platform like we're using today to do all of the training and the development and Q&A and whatnot. And then we have the second week, at least for sales, I could speak to, is all about our product and our sales pitch and objections and whatever the case may be. So everybody could feel really confident. We give every new hire 2 buddies. One buddy is within your direct team, and another buddy is somebody throughout the organization. So it could be within engineering or any different part of the company where you can speak to them, ask them questions, have somebody else outside of your own department.
Awesome. And so I know that a lot of people have questions on like, how do we work remotely or how do we work hybrid and just make sure that we're bringing our full selves to the table. Um, can you all talk about some personal challenges that maybe you have found as you have been navigating these waters of uncertainty, just on a global level, but just how to bring your best selves and communicate virtually to make sure that you're, bringing your best self to the table, essentially. So, any challenges that you have found personally as we continue to work remotely?
I found just being really honest with my team about about what's going on. I value candor so much, especially working in an engineering department where we have a variety of different personalities. You know, introverts are very common in engineering. Shout out to my introvert fam. Thanks for being there for me. And we have, historically engineering has a very, eclectic collection of people, which means lots of different communication styles, in particular, lots of very different learning styles. And it's just so important to be honest with your team about who you are, about, your priorities and, about, your boundaries, your working hours, but even like Jaclyn said, just, what your own career goals are, who you are as a person, so that they can get to know you. And also, when you're having struggles in real life, because let's face it, the last 18 months, maybe not been the best for anyone. And people have handled it in different ways. People have had different experiences. We live all over the world, especially at Hopin. We are all over the place. Everyone's got different restrictions and things they can and can't do. And just being really open and honest with people about like everything's fine, everything's great, everything's okay, because that doesn't set the right tone to either people you work for or the people that work for you that you're leading. And it's going to be hard for them to trust you if you can't trust them as real people. And being honest about if you're having a really bad mental health day or week, month, just letting them know. It gives them a chance to tell to feel open, that they can then tell you if they're having a bit of a bad time. And having that level of openness, that trust, and that candor, I think really helps people feel like they belong within your team, and that you are. A lot of people at Hopin have never met any other Hopiner. I've met a handful of people. It's super exciting. Whenever Hopiners actually get together in the wild, it's hashtag Hopiners in the wild. We have non-work related channels, which is also super important at work. We add all newbies to some of them. We have this whole selection of completely non-work related channels that we're encouraged to participate in, share photos and stories and recommendations, and this is what I cooked at the weekend, and you kind of feel like you actually really know people, which is super. I like it. It's nice. You can see what someone did at the weekend, or the pets channel, which is my absolute favorite because you just get to look at everybody else's pets all day. But it is nice to feel like it is an actual workplace with real human beings, not just voices and faces at the other side of a screen, and get that real human connection, which I think is so important in any workplace, to feel like you're respected and you belong somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that belonging piece and practicing what you preach too, not just saying, we want to make you feel like you belong, and having that inclusivity piece, but practicing it. And so I love that you all are showing that you all practice inclusivity and belonging at Hopin. So that's great. Make sure you all go to Hopin, their page on Power to Fly. You can check out the jobs that are available now. I will drop the link in the chat box again. But we have about 4 more minutes to go over more questions. If anyone has any questions that they want to be submitted in the last 4 minutes, let us know. If not, I will continue with the questions that you all have submitted offline. So I'll look out for the chat box to see if someone wants to have a last minute question. And until then, I'll read this question here. How can I help my spouse or partner understand that working remotely requires the same, if not more, dedication and focus? They seem to think that I should be able to get some chores or other personal tasks done while I'm at home all day. So I'd love to hear your feedback on this question.
Go ahead, Louise.
Yeah, I don't mind. I've been working remotely for 3.5, maybe 4 years now. And yeah, we did encounter this when I first transitioned from office based to fully remote, of that expectation of yeah, I'm technically at home all day. I might be at the occasional load of laundry in the machine if I had a few minutes, but I am not sitting around watching Netflix all day. I'm watching the Olympics this week. Oh, it's no secret. Everyone has, trash TV or something on in the background. It's become a bit of a running joke that everyone's got something. This week is a big celebration of, international sport and, sportsmanship for me. But again, it's the same as, with your team, with your boss. It's that setting expectations of, yes, I know I'm at home all day, but between 9 to 5, whatever, I am working. I might pop into the kitchen to make myself some lunch, but fundamentally I am working. And you just, like we've been saying with everything, boundaries with your, with your partner, with your family, with your flatmates, is no different than the people you work with. Just be clear in that expectation of, oh, would you mind trying to do this during the day? If I find time, if I have a spare 20 minutes, for some reason I finish my lunch early, as Jaclyn was saying earlier, then I might try. But I am working. If not, I will do it when I finish work. I'll do it before I start work. And just being really clear at those expectations. It's been 3.5, 4 years of me working from home. We haven't, we still like each other. So I feel like we've found that nice balance of, him understanding that, I'm at work. I'm in my little room. I'm at work. So.
Yeah, and I think that you need to explain why it's important to avoid those interruptions throughout the day. It breaks your concentration. It makes your workday even longer because you're taking time away from things that you need to get done. But also, I think we need to be consistent with our work hours. So like not taking calls or responding to their text messages or letting them in a room when you're really focusing and working on a particular project. And if all fails, escape, go to Starbucks, the library, maybe a coffee shop somewhere close, 1-2 days a week just to escape.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great recommendations. All right. So we've got about 5 minutes left. I just want to re-share our screen here so that we can go end this off with a bang and have some fun questions actually that you all have answered here, and we're going to project on the screen. But I want to cover the principal themes that you all have talked about today. You've done a great job speaking about how to set expectations at work and at home, the importance of advocating for your boundaries, and practical ideas to create boundaries to help you be more efficient. Before we move on to the next 2 slides, I would love to just get both of your opinions, not opinions, actually your food for thought. So anything out of this last conversation, the past 50 minutes that we've had here that you want to make sure people remember, considering setting their boundaries. You all have done a great job covering these themes here, but anything else, any food for thought, something that you want to make sure people start to do right now, for example?
I would say food for thought, you're working at a company that you worked hard to even get there, to get through that interview process. Your work ethic, your worth and the impact that you can make on a business. Don't let any other fears or things that you're creating in your own head get in the way. Managing those expectations and setting them with your leaders, your peers, whatever the case may be, they're probably more open and receptive to them than you may think. So your mental health comes first, your work-life balance comes first as well, but prioritize you, your family, and your business.
Beautifully said, Jaclyn. Louise, how about you? Would you like to summarize with any food for thought here to end this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much kind of echoing what Jaclyn's saying. Being a full-time working parent, of which I know there are probably many of you listening as well, it can add an extra layer of guilt on top of that as well. Of I'm at home, I'm working, I should be with the kids. And let's face it, you're going to feel guilty if you do. If you don't, no matter what option you choose, there's going to be that guilt flying around. Are you prioritizing work enough or too much? What happens if I respond to this Slack message out of hours? And I think we just need to stop, breathe, and just try and take that pressure off ourselves. No matter what decision we make, we're going to, as human beings, we're going to be naturally, feeling guilty. We're going to second guess every choice we make. And we just kind of almost need to accept that that's just what we're going to do. But know that you've set your boundaries. You need to decide what your what your priorities are, what your working hours are, what works for you, your family, your dog, your kids. What balance do you need to maintain? Whatever your balance is. Do you need to take an hour out to walk the dog at lunchtime? Do you need to disappear off at 8:30 in the morning to take your kids to school? Set your boundaries, block out your calendar, and make sure that that priority is already there and that decision is effectively taken out of your hands. Your lunch break is in your calendar, you're having a lunch break. And just don't be afraid to say no. No is an incredibly powerful word. And one, I think there's a few comments in the chat about, as women, we're often pressured to just accept things and say yes. And we need to remember that we can say no too. And you don't have to give that context. Like, no, I'm sorry. I as Jaclyn said, I'm eating lunch. It's in my calendar. No, don't feel you have to apologize. I'm British. I do it. I can't help it. But remember, you can say no. They are your boundaries. The more you stick to them, the more others around you will feel like they can stick to theirs too. And if we all do it, then we'll eventually all get some kind of work-life balance.
I love that. Thank you both for that food for thought and reviewing. Let's move to the next slide here. We had a chance to chat with our panelists to get to know them a little better. So we have 3 fun questions here. I would love to just maybe hear you reflect on why you all chose these responses. So getting real here today with Jaclyn and Louise. We've already done that for the past hour, but just want to questions here. How would you describe the culture in one word? You all put teamwork. What's your favorite part about working at Hopin? And you wrote the people. And what are your top tips for someone who is interviewing? And you wrote, stay true to who you are. Would one or both of you like to reflect on your responses here?
Yeah, so the culture in one word, there's so many that I wanted to put in there. But we are all working to execute on our mission. And every single person that I've met, that I've encountered with, that you can feel it it sounds crazy, but you can truly feel it in our all hands, that everybody is marching and striving to meet our mission and exceed our goals. And we can't do it without each other. We very much say we're a team-based selling company. Just an AE is not going to be able to get the deal done without so many other people in the business. So teamwork, I would say, would be the first thing that I would say, and which kind of correlates with the second part, is why Hopin's so amazing, is truly the people. They are some of the best people that I've met. We have something called Donut, where once a month it connects you with somebody throughout the organization. And I spoke with an engineer that was in Trinidad. Never thought I'd ever speak with somebody in Trinidad, and we just had the most amazing conversation. So it's pretty amazing to work at this company and be connected with people all around the world.
Awesome. Okay, so I know that you all have some open jobs. If we can go to the next slide, we'll take about one or two more minutes to walk us through the open jobs at Hopin. And I dropped the link in the chat box for folks to have direct access to their page on Power to Fly. But I would love for you all to just, briefly speak about some of the things you are looking for in these open jobs.
Yeah, we've got, what's on the slide is probably just a fraction of the jobs that we've got. Anyone that's been following Hopin knows that we've had just the most phenomenal growth over the last year and a half. I've been at Hopin for just over a year. When I joined, there was 50 people. There's now 800-900 of us. We are, the world's fastest growing startup. It's just been, one hell of a rocket ride, as we like to say. And it just means that we're constantly expanding all over the world, remote, fully remote, which is great because, as Jaclyn said, we get to meet people and work with people from literally all walks of life, and it's wonderful to have that huge diversity of thought. And that's, and you can see just from that slide, we've got quite a few positions. They are obviously all listed on the link that's in the chat. What we're looking for is just real people who are good at what they do, who are passionate about what they do. Come to your interview and geek out about your finance, about how much you love looking after people, how much you love BizOps, what an awesome salesperson you are. No one's going to judge you because you find numbers really exciting, because they're the kind of people we want, who have, who are their own person, who love, love what they do and are passionate about what they do, and want to work with other people who are incredibly passionate about what they do. Honestly, we couldn't have got to where we were if we didn't have this, amazing collection of people that just, love what they do, love doing it at Hopin, and want to work together to create something great. So, as the previous slide said, just bring your authentic self to an interview. Don't have to wear a suit and tie unless you love a suit and tie. Just turn up, be yourself, and that's really what we're looking for. We value your skills, your personality. It's just so important.
If you're somebody that has a bias towards action, eagerness to succeed, apply on our website, be true to who you are. I think you'll be a great fit here.
Awesome. What a beautiful way to end this awesome conversation. I know we went over a couple of minutes, so thank you all for sticking around. I encourage everyone to apply and bring your best selves. Rewatch this chat so that you can take notes and then bring that, show that in your resume or your cover letter or your interview. Hopefully, thank you so much, Louise and Jaclyn. It's been such a pleasure, and thank you everyone for joining us here for the past hour. And good luck applying.
Thank you.
Bye all. Thanks.